Hello, and welcome to Murals, Mosaics, and Community Connections. I'm Abby Padobe. I hope that you have found the right recording. This is me, slightly bigger. I am a middle school art teacher in Laramie, Wyoming. I'm also the NAEA Pacific Region VP elect. You can find me on TikTok at Abby P. Bay. Um, Although I don't have a ton of new TikToks recorded. That's also my email if you have questions or need to get a hold of me. And my phone number. Feel free to text. Actually, that's usually the fastest way to get a hold of me. Why murals? Murals are a way that students can interact with the concept of community and collaboration and legacy in a meaningful way. And so I teach in middle school, and I have a Art 3 class, which is mainly 8th graders, occasionally some 7th graders. I have mixed level classes. But it's the Art 3 class, and it's really the cumulative class for the semester. And is what that means for students is that we're really looking to have them understand that art can create community, and we're looking to create a community that students want to be in and build the culture of our school. And so we do some things around identifying what community is in our school. So when we are looking at what happens when we go into putting a mural in our school, we think about what's already there. So I actually take the kids on a field trip in our school. We take one of our class periods and we just walk around the school and we look at the past murals that are on the walls. The one in the background on this slide is one that was recently finished a couple of years ago. And I do these each semester. We look at what else is on the walls, what other posters have been hung, what other teachers are hanging things, what other notices are up, the techniques and skills that were used in past murals, things that we like, things that we don't like, things that we want to do better, things that could be improved on. We look at what is in the display cases. What do we value as a school already? What is it that our school is trying to show us about the school culture and the community that we already have? And then we talk about who's missing from that picture and what else we might want to represent, and who's in the class that we have, and how we want to represent that. And so we go and see the murals in our school, and we also have some really cool murals in our town. And so we do a downtown walking mural field trip on one of our block days. That's pretty awesome. So when we get started, we really need to think about, at least in my class working with middle schoolers who struggle sometimes with these concepts, how to scaffold communal ideation. And so what does it look like to have kids come up with an idea and then end up not owning the idea but still having buy-in and ownership with it? And so we do a game. It's called Monsters. And so I don't tell them how the whole thing works. They just have to spend one class period usually making a first level monster. And these monsters get made, and they are the students' idea of what the school appropriate monsters. And then we go hang them up. And they're usually done on a full-size piece of regular copy paper. And then they get two half sizes of paper. So I just cut a regular piece of paper in half, and then we go and look at those. Either I distribute those monsters back out in different configurations on the table, or we have them hanging on the wall. But the whole idea is that the first level monsters that we have are the parents, and the second level monsters are the kids. And so they're middle schoolers, and do our best to be appropriate about mingling. But monsters are monsters, and monsters are going to have baby monsters. And so looking at taking ideas and parts from beginning monsters and moving them into the next generation of monsters. And we go through that iteration, and then we end up, and depends on the class and how tolerant they are of me, they'll either make 2 or 4 grandchildren, essentially. So first level monsters, second level monsters, and then the third level monsters. And they just get quarter sheets of paper for this. And so literally we can see the biggest monsters, the top monster, and then the half sheet papers are the second level monsters, and the third level monsters are the quarter sheet monsters. And what happens is that they have to use the middle level monsters to create the third level monsters. So we're not taking any parts from the top generation for the third generation. But is what the point is that we have artwork that starts as your idea, is ideas that you have a voice in or contribute to an idea, and then third level ideas where there's still going to be aspects, possibly of your monster, of other people's monsters, but at the end result is that even though you might be able to point out that was my part, nobody owns the final outcome. It's a shared outcome. And so trying to find a way to have students still buy into the process without having one student design and take off and take the lead, making it still a community effort. So this translates when we're working with murals. We talk about who's going to own the idea. And so this was a mural that we were working on last semester in the fall. We are doing the Scout Makerspace, and we went down and we talked to the librarian who's running the space, what her vision was for the thing. And then students came back and they had to create a first level plan, like based on the idea, what was the idea that they thought would best represent the ask. And then we looked at those, and then we came up and we were like, all right, let's make a next level design. The final outcome design on the slide actually was a third generation idea. We took our first generation ideas, we went down to the librarian, we said, here's all of our first level ideas, these are the ones we think are best, and gave her kind of like our top 5 or 6. And then she said, all right, here are the parts that I like the best. And she pointed out the parts that she liked, and we went back and put those parts together, and we came up with the final outline design. And so that's the final design that we worked off of. And then, of course, things get modified as you go. So when you're thinking about making a mural, you're going to think about some considerations. You need to know, where are you going to put it? Is it going to be inside? Is it going to be outside? How big is your class going to be? I have done this with classes of 4 during COVID, and I have done this with classes of 30. Different class sizes mean different things. What time of year means, are you going to be inside? I can only do outside murals in the early fall or the very, very end of the school year, late spring, which is a tight kind of turnaround. Is it going to be removable? Is it going to be permanent? Is it going to be painted? Is it going to be mosaiced? Where is it going to be located? Who has say of those areas? So the input. So we were in the library. We talked to the librarian. My principal has final say in any outcome that's going to be outside of one of our classrooms. So anything that's in a hallway or a shared space, ultimately the final check goes through the principals. And just making sure the vision is consistent with the goals and culture of the school. Planning and revising. So like the monster game that we do, everybody makes a first level mural plan, and we just continue to rotate until we have a finished project. And you start needing to think about, what does that need to happen? So usually once we have a plan, we do color picking and paint. So we'll pull out all of our old paint that I have on a giant cart, and we'll sort colors and say, what do we have? What do we not have? What do we need? And we'll list things out. And then, or if we're not painting and we're doing tile mosaics or other kinds of things, we just need to figure out, what do we have already and what are we going to need to have? What can we get donated? What do we need to have budgets for? How are we going to get the materials there? Or do you have carts? Are people carrying boxes? Are you going to do it in your classroom, have it installed later? Is it going to be on a canvas? So there's all these different ways to think about this. And then you need to think about how to keep all the kids busy simultaneously. This is driven by you knowing your students and knowing the outcome of what students need to be doing. I have done murals with elementary, and I have done murals with middle school. When I taught high school, I did not do murals in that setting. But I figure if I can get classes of kindergartners to contribute to a community mural, then it's probably doable. And if I don't cover that in this presentation, feel free to reach out, and we can brainstorm some different ways. this was the mural that I had showed the designs for in progress. Um, this particular class needed participation points to maintain and stay on track. We had some kids who really needed a lot of breaks, and it was like excessive, and I was like, you don't actually need breaks, you need to work. And so they ended up having to do participation points. I don't love doing that, but there are students that need that support and scaffolding to remind them to stay on task, especially sometimes middle schoolers who have some high distractibility. So every week they would complete a collaboration check-in, and tell us what they had contributed to the project, efforts, and their initiative, and how they were going to contribute going forward as the mural continued. And then we talked about summative assessments. And so this was a mural that we had done outside. Ideally, we go and spend some time critiquing the legacy that we've left and how our goals were accomplished. I have on here, there are some standard numbers back there. Those are the Wyoming almost adopted state standards that correspond pretty closely to the CREATE standards and the national standards. Those are the ones that we prioritized in our school. And so we also talk about identity. And I guess those are more along the lines of connecting. But because Art 3 for us is where we do talk about community and identity, we do that kind of in reflection. And then more along the lines of how we contributed to what we are doing. So these are some of the painted murals, or pieces of the painted murals. The one that says freedom, that's actually on canvas and was installed. That was the one that was done one of the ones that was done K6. I had a visiting artist come in, and we worked with a visiting artist. This is a giant piece of canvas that we had laid out across 8 tables filling my classroom, and we worked around it. Each class would come and contribute additional layers, and then every kid in school and staff member has their handprint in it as well. And so we filled this up, and we got some movement on it. The other one that was an install after the fact were the silhouette figures. I worked at a military school, hence the freedom, hence the military figures. And those were in collaboration with Month of the Military Child. And so we had actually had some of our family staff member, like people who are serving and their families, come in, and we took photographs of them in silhouette. And then we put each one of them on a piece of plywood, traced it, cut it out with a jigsaw, painted it, and then all the parents that came in, the moms would sign the mom, the dad signed the dad, and then the kids would sign the kids. And so we did that, and that got installed after the fact. Again, another way to do a mural in the classroom and then put it up in the space. Mosaic murals, the eagle and the home of the freedom eagles, those were done in elementary with elementary students. The sunshine and the other sunshine, so those were some trials. So a lot of times to help kids understand spacing and movement, we'll do paper mosaics, and so we'll do torn paper collages just to help them get an idea of what creating space and boundaries looks like. And then these 2 long ones and the sunshine down in the middle, those were ones that my middle schoolers did recently, last year. And there was a third one. So there was actually 3 of those. They were going in the entryway of the school, and it's been taking us a little while to get them hung, but we ended up doing like 100 square feet of mosaic. And it was a little bit intense, but it paid off. It's beautiful. And all of these that we've done, the eagle, the home of the freedom eagles, and the long ones, have all been done on plywood and have been bolted to the walls so that they can actually be removable, but also so that we can work on them in the art space and not be transporting grout and things to a location. And so just some things that we thought about. We had a school that was getting rebuilt, and the murals that they had that were mosaiced on their walls were actually grouted onto the walls. And, the art teacher didn't think about a new school building 60 years later and the community was devastated to lose those murals as the school got rebuilt. And so we started out thinking about that if the schools ever need to be rebuilt or something happened or they wanted to move them or relocate them, then we made those removable. So if you're using paint, things to consider. It is best to remind students that it is a collaborative effort. They need to do their best work and move towards finished outcomes. That's really important. Document. It is a process. You share it with your community, share it with the newspaper, share it with your school district newsletter, share it to your school newsletter, and also have that documentation as part of the students' reflective process. It helps us reflect. It helps them reflect. Speaking of documenting things, take pictures of the paint that you buy, and then on the image that you took a picture of, just like make a text note on that in your phone or like where you used it, because inevitably if you write on the can what color it was and where you used it, you will either lose the can, or the kids will lose the can, or they will paint over the label somehow. You will lose that information. Trust me. There is also some things to consider between indoor light, like indoor painting and outdoor painting, and UV light fast. Like we had some paint donated in one of our outdoor murals, and we didn't pay attention to the UV light fastness of it, and we painted it on in the fall with it brown, and by spring it was pink. So, live and learn. As you're deciding to paint murals, inevitably you will have people want to donate paint to you. Great. You don't always have to do that. If you're going to not keep that paint, think about disposal methods, talk to your custodial staff. But if you're buying paint, consider buying it all in the same sheen. Like, for sure. So we do have some murals in our building where the whites don't match or the sheens don't match. Just some things to think about. And then your handles of your paintbrushes will fill with water as you're washing them. I have found that if you drill a small hole around the metal band that holds the bristles on, it's called the ferrule. I had no idea what that was called. But if you drill a hole there, and then at the end of the paintbrush, kind of where it would like hang on the hook in the store, it'll mean the water can drain out of the handles. It's a life hack. You're welcome. Trust me, it's a good idea. I took ours down to the industrial shop, but if you could drill 2 holes in each paintbrush handle, they're hollow, and if you, like when we're painting, we'll have the kids put the paintbrushes in a bucket of water, because even if the kids wash the paintbrushes themselves, if they sit overnight, most of the paint will kind of break up, and it becomes way easier to wash them than washing them right away. At least with the latex paint that we use. And so when they're sitting in the water or soaking, inevitably the handles will fill with water, and then it takes a million years for it all to drain out. So just drill some holes in your handles. Other things, considering using tiles. I like to use 1/4-inch plywood. It's pretty cheap and light. And then Bondera. And that is a product specific to Home Depot. I think you can only order it online now. At least my Home Depots don't carry it in store anymore. It is there's like the tile setting sticky where you like put up, it's almost like double-sided tape, but a lot of the brands are meant for actual people who are putting up tile in their kitchen and are using tiles that are big enough and regular enough that they don't have to put glue on the whole thing. Bondera is fully double-sided sticky, and so it makes all the difference in the world. And then I use sanded grout, because anything over a certain space, you need the sand so that it doesn't crack. Trust me, if you haven't done it before. You can use pre-made tiles or donated tiles, or you can make them. The Big Eagle, and the Home of the Freedom Eagles, those were 8 foot by 8 foot each, And those were pre-made tiles that we purchased and then broke. The ones that we just finished with the middle schoolers last year, that was my class of 30 students, and we made the tiles mainly to keep kids busy. So we made them, we glazed them, we fired them, we broke them, and then we used them. And it was a big process. Bandera it's double-sided sticky. You peel off the back and stick it to the board, the plywood. And then the top part, you can project images on, you can draw them on. You draw them on with Sharpies, and then you can go and use a box cutter or an X-Acto knife and cut on your Sharpie lines, and then just peel one section up at a time. And then that helps you determine where the edges are between colors. And it helps if you're having, like, you're not going to finish tiling it in one class period. So it can help make sure that you don't just have exposed sticky, because it is sticky, and you don't want kids sticking things into it or getting stuck to it. It happens. If you're using tiles that aren't the same height, you're going to have some issues with grouting. It's not unmanageable. It's just something to note. It does become more difficult, especially if there is a drastic height difference. And if you're using little teeny tiny pieces where the base is really small, just the way that the tiles break, the attachment to the bandera, there's just not enough surface area to attach. And so it becomes really narrow. You want to leave a little bit of space between the shapes. So on the sunshine, we left some space on the outside of sunshine where the blue was going to attach, or between the sun rays and the blue, like an actual physical gap, so that when the grout sits in that gap, it creates a visual line. And so anywhere that you have grooves in between tiles becomes your grout lines. If you make those consistent, they become visual lines when grouted. And then make sure that, like, I always have it called the fingertip rule. If you can fit your finger in a spot, you should have a tile there. You don't want spaces bigger than fingertips, being aware that you have some kids with really tiny fingertips. So we made tiles. I have in the slides, I've made these so that these all hyperlink to TikToks that I've made. And so if you want to walk through and look at all the steps that I have, I guess I did not video the kids breaking tiles or keeping them sorted. But that's how we made the tiles. We cut them out. We had a tile cutter. We stacked them, fired them, glazed them, cleaned them, broke them again if they were too big, and then keeping them sorted into trays of colors was super helpful. And then this is, again, I didn't take a video of putting the bandera on the board, but thinking about how you're going to leave holes in the corners. Are you going to put it in a shadow box? Is it going to be on a display stand? We had 2 foot by 2 foot boards, and we left 1-inch holes in the corners about an inch away from each corner, so that there's 4 bolts going in. They just hung them recently. They look beautiful. Once you know how you're going to hang them before you do anything else, then you put the design on with Sharpie, and then you cut the lines, and then you just peel one section up at a time, check for spaces, and then grout them. And I have videos on several of those. I think actually that's 2 different videos right there between transferring the design and cutting them. And then this is kind of where you're going to see, like, the outer space tiled mosaic, the process of tiling it and grouting it, and our sunshine tile mosaic. And then this one is a painted mural that was finished. So it's like a little tour of a full room that we did for our special ed department. They have a focus room that needed some help. And so we did that. And then these are murals that are in Laramie. So these are not our murals, but these are the ones that we look at when we're going out to make murals. And so you can check out the TikToks where we learned more about those. Feel free to contact me if you have questions. I love to talk about murals. Message me, give me a call. Let's talk about murals if you have comments or questions about murals. And then, again, my contact information. And if you want this slide deck, you're welcome to scan the code and have the deck yourself. So Yay! I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for letting me present.